Hey everybody, how are you guys doing this evening? Hopefully you guys can all hear me loud and clear and I'm coming through. Got a couple cool things. I shouldn't say cool things. Got a couple good topics to talk about that was suggested via the emails and different things. So right on. And let me move this fan off here. There. Hopefully that'll get rid of the sound there. Hopefully you guys can hear better now. Sorry, I need a little water. Someone just pointed out in here, the Indie Iceman, I saw that you noted in there to use a scraper for the calcium on the ice machine. Yes, I have done that. I'm not a fan of it just because you can create little microsurfaces for the stuff to build up. But you are correct that sometimes it gets so bad that you have to scrape it. You know, I mean, it's one of those things. I try not to, though. You know, if you clean the ice machine correctly and you, sorry, I'll move back from the camera a little bit so I'm not up all in your guys' face. You know, if you clean it correctly and do the normal routine stuff, then you shouldn't have to use a scraper. But yeah, it's one of those things. I try not to just because it can leave little gouges and different things for the, you know, for the bacteria and different things to build up inside those machines. If you actually follow a lot of the manufacturer's instructions on ice machines, they actually say not to use anything like other than a terry cloth or just a towel, which, you know, isn't really practical. In all reality, I use a Scotch-Brite pad, you know, just the little green ones that aren't too bad. And we use those and then we just throw them away when we're done. But, you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and to each their own, you know, just it is what it is. So cool. Right on. Hopefully, obviously, you guys see I have a different setup here. I don't know if you guys listened to Zach Ciota's podcast, but I discussed my craziness in my head and my mental disorders, and he was joking around the other day and saying how he went and redid his office, and that got me thinking about it. And so if you're watching, Zach, I went into my manic state and decided to go ahead and redo my office this weekend. So just got some shelves and different things, and I wanted to be able to display different things in the background and stuff. So kind of reorganized the desk situation in here and repositioned. Because before, my studio it's a room that has a sliding glass door off the side of it, and the sliding glass door is kind of hindering the way that I could do video and different things. But I have some ideas on some stuff I want to do, and I really needed to change up my office to do so. And I always thought, too, I like when people put up cool stuff in the background that people can look at and try to figure out what they are and that kind of stuff. So right on, Isaiah, HVAC with ZSA's in here, and he said he just hit 762 subscribers. Congratulations, bud. You're doing a great job, so keep it up, man. If you guys haven't already, subscribe to Isaiah's channel and check it out. You know, he puts up some good content, so yeah, I appreciate you guys hit the like button. That would really, really help. And Justin, is the audio better? Any better? I moved a little bit closer to the mic, so hopefully that works out. Right on. Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody's. I'm going to try to get to the chat here in a few minutes, guys. Bear with me. It takes me a minute to calm down. Putting this stream on, I'm trying to you know, come up with all kinds of topics and stuff. So I'm going to talk for a minute, and then we'll get to some of his or some of the comments and questions and all that good stuff. Okay. Justin, as I always say, Justin's my moderator in here, and he is in here to help with questions and different things. So he's going to try to help me get to everything. If you guys can, try to put your questions to me in caps lock. Okay. So that way, Justin, if I miss them, then that way Justin can see them and he'll try to shoot the questions over to me and different things. Okay. So yeah. All right. So let's get going. 2 videos since the last live stream. Okay. We had the video on the Hvacr Blue unit, and I kind of wanted to go over a little bit about the Hvacr Blue unit. I've done it many times. And if you guys watch my videos, you've seen me explain how those units work. Okay. But I am going to kind of go over it real quick. The Hvacr Blue unit is their newer refrigeration unit, and what it does is it uses glycol as the cooling medium for the where the food is at. Okay, so they do have a normal refrigeration condensing unit, and then what they have is they have a heat exchanger, and the refrigerant stays in between the condensing unit and the heat exchanger. And then glycol, it's a flat plate heat exchanger. Glycol is then pumped through the cold rail and then down to the base section of the box, and the glycol is circulating 24/7. Now, one thing I will say is they are slow to come down to temperature. They do seem to take a little bit longer than a normal DX box, where it's just exchanging air and refrigerant, or, across the surfaces of the refrigerated evaporator. But once they do get down to temp, I notice that they hold temperature a lot better, and they maintain more even temperatures. And by Hvacr going to this blue technology, what they did was they eliminated a bunch of their problems with their pan chiller cold rails. So it really does help to have the glycol in those units, okay? So down in the base section now, you have what looks like a normal evaporator coil, but it does not have refrigerant in it. It's glycol that's circulating through that, okay? Now, I've had people say like, hey, what's the benefit to having glycol versus refrigerant? I just noticed a better operation of the unit in general. I noticed better temperature, across the box, and the food stays more evenly, at temperature. So I really like the new Hvacr units, or the blue. They're not really that new. They've actually been around for about probably 8 or 9 years. But I'll tell you a story. I don't do a lot of work. Oh, thanks so much, Zach. I really appreciate it. I don't do a lot of work with them anymore, but I used to do Hvacr's warranty work out here in Southern California. And at the time, they had some pilot programs that they were doing with Lucille's Barbecue, which is like a barbecue place out here. And basically, they built the entire refrigeration system for the restaurant, and it was all ran off of glycol. So all their walk-ins, they just basically had a giant chiller on the roof with circulating pumps. And I've heard, maybe if some of you refrigeration guys that handle restaurant refrigeration like I do, I've heard that Cheesecake Factory might do this too. I don't know if that to be true, but I have heard that, and I know that Lucille's, I believe, is still doing it, where they have the chiller set up on the roof and they're just pumping glycol all the way through the building. So all the refrigerant just stays up on the roof, and they just have glycol lines ran everywhere. I'm talking to all the prep tables, all the Trolson coolers. Yeah, they have it going everywhere for everything. And then the refrigerant just stays on the roof. So it's a pretty cool little thing, especially in our restaurant stuff, because our restaurants are never very high tech. So it's kind of cool to walk into one of those systems and get to work on something different every once in a while. So, okay, I'm going to address some of these questions real quick. Avitagon, I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name. You said, do I watch any of the following channels? EEV Vlog. I have just recently been turned on to EEV Vlog and AV. I have not watched any of the other ones, but do me a favor, if you can, send me an email with those channels and I'll check them out. Or I'll try to go through the chat too, but it'd be easier if you just send me an email with it. So we'll try to get to that. Yeah, I'll check them out and see how it goes. Thanks a lot, Zach. Oh, okay. Cool. Right on, Jeff Montalavo. I don't know if I said that wrong. Sorry, bud, if I did. But okay, so yeah, you did set up the Cheesecake Factory in Queens. Yeah, that's what I heard, is they were running chillers. Oh, so they were running train chillers at Cheesecake Factory. Oh, interesting. So I wonder if so are they using Hvacr equipment downstairs with a train chiller on the roof? Is that what they're doing? See, because Hvacr used to manufacture their own chillers. So did they go away from manufacturing those? I don't know if any of you other guys do that work. So interesting. What a traveler asks, what's the number one tool you would recommend for a new tradesperson in the trade? It's not so much about a tool, bud. It sounds corny and stuff, but it's about knowledge. Take your time, be willing to learn, be humble. As far as like new tools, you need to start out with your basic tools. And if you don't know how to use the tools, there's no point in having the tools. So it's kind of hard for me to say the one new tool. It really depends on what you're working on too. So I'd be glad to go into some more detail if you want to send me an email, bud, to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Okay. And I'll try to address that some more. So yeah, Justin's kind of answering it a little bit too. So he'll see that. Okay. I'm going to kind of keep going through a few of these things. Let's see. Sorry for that. Okay. So I had a pretty good question that came in today, and it was from someone who he just does, I believe, residential, maybe light commercial. And he was asking how, and again, this is a little bit beyond my scope of work, but I do have an understanding on how they work. Okay. And he asked how motors and compressors on chillers that basically run 24/7, how they run all the time without burning up. Okay. And there's a couple things that go on with that. Okay. First off, motors, they really do have a long lifespan, and a lot that motors motors and compressors and different things, any electrical device, it has, like, one of the hardest things it has is when it starts up. Okay. There's a lot of wear and tear that goes into a unit that's started and stopped multiple times. Okay. So there is some logic to running things for long run times. Okay. And when you have like a multiple compressor or multiple fan situation, a lot of times they do like a lead lag setup where they might stage certain fan motors. Okay. So let's say let's say the unit has 7 or 8 condenser fan motors. Okay. And, obviously we aren't going to have a need more than likely for all those motors to run at all the time. Okay. Especially if there's no load on the unit or if it's cool outside. Okay. So they're going to cycle motors depending on pressures or temperatures, different things. Okay. But then a lot of times what they'll do, C&H guy, thank you so very much, man. I really appreciate it. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll set them up on a lead lag setup. So basically every couple of days, you'll have so many primary motors and you'll have so many secondary motors. So the secondary motors will usually cycle off first and the primary motors will usually run longer. Okay. And then every couple days they might have a timer and they might swap which ones. So that way we get even run time across those motors and compressors. Okay. Maybe some guys that do a little more industrial work can explain that a little bit better, just feel free to reach out through email. Again, I don't need to keep saying reach out to email, but a lot of these things I can't talk forever on them. So, anything that I don't address, guys, just send it out in an email. Okay. So the video that I released today was on the dirty ice machine. Number one, I want to point out, I have a phrase that I use all the time and it's ignorance is bliss, right? And it really is. If you don't know what's going on, it's so much easier to deal with something. Okay. Most people don't know that ice machines can be nasty. Okay. So oftentimes we eat at a restaurant and we don't even know what their kitchen looks like, right? So ignorance is bliss, because if you're not getting sick, move on, right? So every ice machine out there is disgusting, okay? Every ice machine is dirty. But what is disgusting and what is like not, what's going to make you sick, there's a difference there, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I kind of said that wrong. But, calcium and minerals and different things are naturally in water, okay? So ice machines, they're naturally going to have that stuff. It's not the end of the world. Now, the ice machine that I showed, that was pretty gross because that had like some slime and bacteria buildup inside of it. That's what's really grosses me out, is bacteria and slime, okay? But, for those of you guys that don't work with ice machines, anywhere that has bakery, yeast in the air, breweries and different things, their ice machines are pretty nasty usually. Okay. And that black moldy slime buildup, it's not really mold, but it's like a bacterial buildup of slime and different things that's in the air. That stuff builds up in the machines. But what we don't realize is that stuff is typically coming from the air that we're breathing. So even though it is gross, is there really any difference between just walking around breathing that stuff all day versus ingesting it? I'm kind of curious about that. I realize that our noses are supposed to filter things out and stuff like that, but it's kind of weird. Like, is there really that much of a difference from, I guess if you're walking through a restaurant, and you're breathing some dirty air, is it, I don't know. That's just kind of an interesting thought. Is it really that different? So, okay. I'm going to go ahead and look at some of these questions down in here. Let's see if we got any. So what's the best way to set and adjust a semi-hermetic compressors? Adjust unloaders. Okay, dhard01. I'm not going to be the best person to answer that question too much because I don't deal with the bigger systems that have compressors with unloaders on them. I have dealt with them in the past and they're basically off of pressure. But I can safely say that it's going to depend on what you're using them on. Okay, is it a refrigeration system? Is it an air conditioning system? What temperature the evaporator is going to set your unloaders controls. That's going to turn them on and off, or turn the unloader on or off or whatever. But that's about all that I'm going to answer on that one because I really don't have the confidence to answer that anymore. Essentially, I'm stupid and I don't know the answer. Okay, so okay, let's go in here and see what else we're missing. Okay. Can I explain how to find the TD on an evaporator to find if you have a good pressure? Okay. That's from CBCB. Well, you need to talk to the manufacturer. That's the only way you're really going to know how they design that evaporator. Okay. Because we can run a TD. The TD is determined by the size of the expansion valve. Okay. And the amount of air going across the evaporator. And the evaporator size comes into play too. So really you won't know unless you lean on the manufacturer. Now there's some rules of thumb that we can use. But you know, they change from region. Okay, I mean, just like a real vague rule of thumb on air conditioning is you might see like a 35-degree evaporator TD on there. But that, again, it all changes via climate and different things and how that air conditioner was designed, the SEER rating of it and everything. Okay. On refrigeration, like walk-in coolers, typically you're going to see just general product storage. If you're not worried about drying out product inside the box or anything like that, you're typically going to run about a 10-degree evaporator TD. Same thing goes for a walk-in freezer, about a 10-degree evaporator TD. But it all changes depending on if you're keeping flowers in the box or if you're keeping cakes in the box, different things like that. So it really, really does depend on what you're working on. But you need to lean on the manufacturer and or the design engineer of that building. So if you have a building and it's like a big old air conditioning setup there, the engineer that designed it is going to tell you what he designed the evaporator coils for and that kind of stuff. So hopefully that answers a little bit there. When you clean condenser coils on rooftop units, do you split the coils to clean them? Alan Wilburn. I do not split them every single time, okay? If it's a new customer and I'm being called out for a service call, then yes, I'm probably going to split them the first time because I don't know how dirty they are. Sometimes you can pop the lid on the condenser and investigate to see if they're dirty inside. But if they're my customers and we have them set up on like routine preventative maintenance, then no, I'm only going to split them like once or twice a year, depending on the climate. So in my region, in the Moreno Valley area, which is in the Inland Empire of Southern California, for whatever reason, we get this pollen floating around in the air. And in the summertime, it just plugs everything up quite often. So you could be out a couple weeks later and have plugged up condensers, and that stuff will get sucked right into the condensers and cause a problem. So we have to split our coils a little bit more there versus some other cities. And a lot of times I notice when condensers are located, or the buildings are located next to a freeway, we tend to see more of that pollen and crap building up on the condensers too. So, but yes, we always want to pay attention to splitting condensers, and it's pretty much a good rule of thumb. Anything over 5 tons typically is going to have a double road coil, whether it be residential or commercial. Sometimes you might see a smaller unit, 4 tons, but I don't know that I've seen very many of those. But mostly 5 tons and up, you're typically going to see a split condenser, and you need to get in there and separate them. A lot of times, too, on a split air conditioning condenser, we're talking about air conditioning right now, and a lot of times the condensers will have little clips on the condenser that holds the ends together. So, and you have to be very careful when you're splitting them apart. I think I have some videos on it if you guys want to go to my channel. I really don't know which video is going to have it though. Well, no, in the Train air conditioning unit, it's one of my more popular videos where it had it was overcharged. That was the one that I split the condenser on. I think I might have showed it, but most of them, they come apart the same way, where you just one end of the condenser coil splits apart, and it's usually the opposite end of where the refrigeration lines connect to it. So, but there's little clips that hold it together, and when you pop those clips off, most of the time they don't go back together, so you just got to pay attention and try to scoot them back together as close as possible. Sometimes I'll run a zip tie through them to hold them together or something. So, okay, does it make a big difference for a walk-in freezer water-cooled condenser to run lower pressures? Does it make a big difference? Well, I kind of need a little more context to that. It's the Tito 209, but in general, remember that we design, depending on how the system was designed, we design our systems to have a certain pressure drop across the expansion valve. So the lower we go with that pressure drop, and depending on how old the valve is, especially if it's a really old valve, you tend to have more problems when the pressure drop gets really low. So that means when your condensing temperature drops too low, okay, then the pressure drop in the system, the difference between one side of the expansion valve and the other side, is going to go a lot lower, right? Because your condensing temperature drops, okay? When that happens, then it's going to, start to affect things. Now, the more modern expansion valves, and Sporlan has a podcast that they just started doing about expansion valves, and they just talked about this topic and how the newer expansion valves, they're designed to not be restricted so much by the pressure drop, kind of, in a nutshell, okay? So, but yeah, I mean, it all depends, okay? But I've seen buildings running really low that are water-cooled condensing units, and they basically run 70-degree water, 65-degree water. I've seen them run throughout the winter, and they run just fine. So it just depends on the load and how the system was designed. Okay. Okay, so does time pressures prevent me from doing all that needs to be done on call? Philip Jenkins. That's interesting. I don't really know exactly where we're going with that, but I'm going to try to answer that as best as I think I could. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, on a call, it depends. Okay. Sometimes, in the middle of the summer when we're slamming busy, I might have to put a fire out, so to speak, right? And then do a follow up later. It just depends. I mean, we get those couple weeks during the summer where it just gets stupid busy and we can't keep up with it. And yeah, I'm like, for instance, this last summer that we hit 120 degrees at my house in Southern California, which was like a record breaker. And that entire week where we hit 120 on one day, but then like 118, 115 the rest of the week. And that entire week we were going around resetting pressure controls because automatic like encapsulated pressure controls, they were basically popping off and tripping everywhere. And there was nothing wrong with the system. It was just too darn hot. So in that situation, we rinsed off the condensers really quick and we weren't able to thoroughly troubleshoot things. We just had to get them running and move on to the next call. But we typically went back and followed up, So yes, time does affect the way that we do service calls, but we always try to be thorough and still look at the big picture as best as possible and try to go back whenever we can. And we, try to keep the customer in the loop and let them know, like, this is what we got to do. This is what's happening. So, all right. Hopefully that answers your question there. And let's see. Is Rick from Northwest Ohio here? I don't know if Rick's here. I haven't seen him yet, but it's kind of hard for me to keep up with the chat. So, okay. Do you guys have Daikin VRV units in the US, and how do you diagnose with an inverter compressor since the compressor changes speed and throws off everything? Okay, Sterling, yes, we do have Daikin VRV systems. I don't work on any VRV or inverter driven. I mean, I work on small mini splits that have inverters, but I don't work on the big stuff, okay? We have a couple different major brands. So there's probably going to be some better guys in here, and I want to be careful about answering this, but I do know that those units do have, I've heard that they have like a service mode that you put them in that basically runs everything so that way you can properly charge them. But again, I want to be cautious about answering that because I don't want to lead you in the wrong direction. So how many yearly service contracts do I have on just cleaning ice machines? Superior, unfortunately, I don't have very many contracts left. I have 1, 2, 3 restaurant chains that do preventative maintenances, and then my major restaurant chain doesn't do preventative maintenances with me anymore. So they use some national filter changing company to do their PMs. So I don't know. I would say that my contract customers, it's not really a contract, but they're just like service agreements that we have with them. And I would say I probably have maybe 25 restaurants, maybe 30 restaurants that we service on a regular, but it's not necessarily every month. Each restaurant's different. Some restaurants want us to service them every 3 to 4 months. Some of them want us to do them every month. So it just depends on each restaurant. And then, yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say probably 45 customers that we do preventative maintenance for. And we have other techs. It's not just me out there working. Between myself and all the other people that we have working with us, we have 5 people out in the field right now. So, all right. See what else we're doing in here. And did I see Ralph's in here? I see someone saying hey to Dallas. Or is that Dizzy Dallas? I'm missing someone in here. Sorry. Well, I'm not going to spend all day on that. Okay. Okay. It's Dizzy Dallas. Hey, bud. How you doing? I see you in there now. So, all right. And I'm trying, I see some of you guys are having conversations here, so I'm trying to keep up with it, but let's try to keep them in caps lock, okay? All right, I'm going to go to a couple more questions here. Let me go ahead and change that to live chat so that way I can see it. There we go, right on. Linux, I'm going to answer this one. So the Tito 209, Linux AC unit, high efficiency units, where can we get more information? Because tech support takes about 3 hours to get a hold of. That's a hard one, bud. Read the manual. Go to linuxpros.com. I'm going to type it in here. This is their website where you can get, hey, Paul, how you doing? This is where you can order parts and different things. And they actually have some good information in there and lots of technical manuals. You just got to learn how to operate it. You might have to create a username and password. If you have an account with, what's the name of their supply house? Linux. I can't think of Linux's supply house right now. Anyways, but I think you might have to have an account with their supply house to get access to that. But just go to linuxpros.com and I'm sure it'll explain it some more. But I get all kinds of great troubleshooting information. And on a side note too, if you ever need parts, most of the time, because I don't like to wait on hold dealing with them, because I'm not like an authorized, because if you're like an authorized warranty company with a lot of these manufacturers, they give you priority. So if you do a lot of Linux work, like the national accounts technicians, they have their own phone numbers that they call. And the same thing with like Delafield and Manitowoc and all these different companies. But if you're not like a normal parts person, I mean, a normal warranty person for them, and you don't have priority, a lot of times it can be difficult to get a hold of them. And yeah, the hold time can be like 2 hours. It's stupid sometimes. So a lot of times I'll go onto linuxpros.com and navigate via model and serial number, and I'll find my own part numbers, and you can even check stock and be at the supply house before the guys even answer the phone. So something to think about. But that Linux Pros website's pretty cool. All right. And let's see what else I got going on here. Parts Plus. There you go, Jeff. I couldn't think of that for a second. Yeah, Parts Plus is the name of their parts house. So yeah, there we go. Everybody's answering that right now. But yeah, go to linuxpros.com. That used to be called DaveNet. And you can look up a lot of cool technical manuals. But, you know, a lot of the stuff that I've done is just from researching and forums. And remember, let's not forget, guys, there's a great forum called hvac-talk.com. And, you know, before YouTube was really big, we all used to be on that message board, and there's still lots of great information, and a lot of it was archived. Although a couple years back, they had a problem where the site crashed for a long time and they lost a lot of information, but there's still a lot of great archived information on there. And if you want to learn about Linux package units, you know, you can do a Google search, or you can also go to hvac-talk.com and then, you know, search it in the search bar. You might have to become a member or something, but as far as I know, you don't have to pay. I don't pay anything for it, so I'm a member. And lots of great information, lots of guys just like us on YouTube that are sharing information on there. Even some YouTubers too are still on there. And yeah, but that website goes way back, because that used to be really popular. A lot of the guys in here probably remember that. So, all right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit another topic that I had on my sheet right here. Another question I had was about using UV light kits in ice machines, and are they effective or not? I have seen a lot of UV kits. Manitowoc, you can actually order their Illuma Ice, which is a UV light with a little pump that pumps, you know, whatever ozone across the ice machine area or whatever. And I have noticed when you use those that they do slow down the bacteria growth inside the machines. One of the things that people don't realize, though, is UV lights have a very short shelf life on them. So on the Manitowoc ones, I think you got to change them every 6 months. And after that time, they become ineffective. Even if you still see a light coming out of them, they're not doing anything anymore. So, but the UV lights, they do work. They slow. I mean, they're not going to eliminate the problem. Depending on your environment, you just need to adjust your cleaning schedules. You know, some customers don't quite understand that sometimes, you know, if you have a bar with a lot of yeast, do with beers, or a brewery or a bakery, you know, those machines are going to need to be cleaned every 2 to 3 months, you know, depending on how bad they are, versus another machine you might be able to get away with a couple months. And it also depends on the manufacturer. For whatever reason, we tend to see more bacteria growth in a Manitowoc ice machine versus a Hoshizaki ice machine. But we tend to see more problems with calcium and scale buildup in Hoshizaki machines versus Manitowoc machines. So, you know, and I'm not saying either one's better, but, you know, we just tend to see that a little bit more. Okay. Junior, you said you recently got, or JR, you recently got hired on your new job and noticed in your kitchen we have a really bad negative air pressure where the doors slam behind you. I noticed that it only happens when the chefs have the exhaust fans on. I checked the Makeover unit that they are running at full capacity. I was told to install a VFD on the exhaust fan when it runs 10.5 horsepower. Can you get into VFDs? I don't know much about them, or if you have any suggestions, thank you. Okay, even if you're a technician, Junior, I highly suggest that you guys pay a test and air balance company to come out and take the measurements and tell you what your system should be at. They're not necessarily going to correct everything if you don't want them to, but you can pay a test and air balance couple $100 to come out and just do an evaluation on your building, and then they'll lead you in the right direction. Because as far as balancing out a building, you can go a bunch of different directions. I'll make it clear right now, I am not a certified test and air balance technician. I just know how they work essentially and know what's going on with them. But when it comes to restaurants can be very particular, because depending on your region, you may be pulling outside air, minimum outside air, through air conditioning units via the economizers. If that's the case, then all of your air conditioning units, indoor fans need to be running basically 24/7 if you're pulling any outdoor air through the AC units. They need to be running whenever your exhaust fans are running because those are part of the total building envelope. Then you need to have all the exhaust fans running and the makeup air unit running, and then you evaluate things and adjust from that point. So I'd be happy to talk some more about it in an email if you want to send it over to me. So, all right. Acclaimed. I personally have, besides improper. I don't know. Oh, okay. So what's my thoughts on dirty vans? Okay, the Tito 209. Dude, people's vans get dirty. I try to keep mine clean, but I'm going to be honest with you. If you guys have seen my van tour video, my van stays relatively clean, but at the end of the week, it gets dirty like everybody else's. I mean, it's not disgusting. I don't have food growing. Dizzy Dallas, dude, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate these super chats, guys. You guys are blowing my mind with these. I lost my train of thought there. Sorry. Okay, so dirty vans. You know, my van gets dirty, okay, but I try to keep it clean. I don't have food growing and crap, all right? But, you know, I mean, your van is a representation of you. I've heard of some people saying that, you know, my van's going to stay dirty, those grumpy techs. Like, oh my gosh, my van's always going to stay dirty. I try to clean mine sometimes, okay? But again, I'm not going to say I'm the perfect angel of everything, but there's nothing worse than opening your van door and parts rolling out of your van and then you selling those parts to the customer. God forbid your customer sees those parts roll out onto the floor and then you pick them up and try to sell them to them. So there is something about keeping your van clean, okay? But I'm not saying it has to be sparkly clean, but I mean, at least have some sort of an organization to it. I think that's a very important thing, okay? If your van looks like a tornado blew up inside of it, I mean, you're going to have a lot of truck raped parts in there, okay? And there's a lot of parts that are going to get thrown away or destroyed because they're, you know, just getting, covered in crap stacked on top of them and all kinds of stuff. So, and it's hard to understand inventory. And again, I'm saying this from experience. When my van gets really, really messy, I tend to have an overstock of parts in there because it's like, oh, I can't find that liquid line filter dryer. I'll go buy 2 more. And then when you clean your van, all of a sudden you have 4 of them, right? And then you're like, oh, my bad. So, you know, there is something about keeping your van clean. I wouldn't say that it's like the most important thing in the world, but just try to keep it somewhat organized. All right. Okay, I'm going to go to my topics here real quick. This was an interesting one. So someone had asked me, I can't remember if it was in the YouTube chat or where, but they said, is it okay to use CLR as an ice machine cleaning? So CLR is the household delimer, essentially, okay? So I'm going to give you the clean and safe answer, and that's no. All right. I'm not going to say that I have never seen someone use it, and I've actually heard of an ice machine manufacturer once recommending it, but I'm going to cover that with a big but. It depends on what type of evaporator. And the reason why I say don't use it is because it's not necessarily NSF approved for food safe use, basically. Okay, so most ice machine cleaners, they're approved to be used in an ice machine, and you have to be worried about contamination. You have to be worried about customers' healths and different things. Okay, so for the simple fact of it's not an approved ice machine cleaner, I would say no, don't use CLR because you never know what's in that stuff. You want to use ice machine manufacturer approved and or NSF approved ice machine cleaners and you want to follow the instructions to a T, basically making sure that you're sanitizing your surfaces after you're done and you're flushing the systems out and rinsing everything. Okay. Now let's talk about the different types of evaporators in ice machines. So Hoshizaki ice machines have a stainless steel plate evaporator. Okay. So it's a thin stainless steel plate and the water runs across that and the refrigeration lines are soldered to the back of those plates. So you can use basically full strength phosphoric acid ice machine cleaners. So like the new Calgon clear ice machine cleaner, or you have to be careful on Hoshizaki. Every machine, you have to know the differences, okay? Let's talk about a Manitowoc machine. A Manitowoc machine is a copper evaporator that's plated in nickel, okay? And that nickel coating will come off if you use the phosphoric acid clear ice machine cleaner. Okay, so on a Manitowoc ice machine, on a nickel plated evaporator, there's some other nickel plated ones too. I believe Scotsman is nickel plated, and I believe Isomatic's nickel plated. You have to use nickel safe ice machine cleaner. Okay, now there's a couple different types of nickel safe ice machine cleaner too. There's a couple different things they add to them. So New Calgon uses citric acid in their nickel safe ice machine cleaner. I believe they use citric acid. I'm not going to say that for sure, but there's some nickel safe ice machine cleaners that have citric acid. Well, citric acid can attack certain metals too. So you got to be very cautious and lean on the manufacturer of each ice machine to know which cleaner to use inside of them. So let's see what else I'm going in here. I missed a bunch of questions here. What kind of temp control do I prefer other than Johnson Controls ones? Because put here in the Bay Area, you have lots of issues with them, or maybe it's everyone. If I'm going to go with just like a generic digital control, I like the Ronco ETC 111000s for, but the 141,000 is the NEMA 4X, like water resistant control. That's the best one, but sometimes it's a little big. So the 111,000 is a really good control that I'll use. I'm not a fan of Johnson Controls A419 controls. That's their digital one. I do, however, like the A19 mechanical Johnson Controls when you're needing a generic controller for like a walk-in cooler. I like those. But it all depends on where you install them and how you install them. I'm really starting to like the Kita Therm temperature controllers. They have the temp plus defrost controllers, and they're digital, and they have a defrost built into them. I have some videos where I've used them, and you can add communication devices on them. So you can, like, for instance, I have one set up at one of my restaurants where I can walk in the back door and connect to the controller on my smartphone, and that's really cool. So it just depends on the different types. And then if I'm working on like a Delfield refrigerator, I try to go OEM as much as possible. So I don't like to veer away from the OEM stuff unless I know that I can solve a problem by going away from OEM. Sandstroff, how can you detect a refrigerant leak on the water side of a condenser in a hydronic walk-in fridge? I got to read that one again. How can you detect a refrigerant leak on the water? Oh, well, when you open your Schrader port to put your gauges on it, if water bowls out, then you got a problem, right? I mean, I've seen that happen. So that's a hard one. I mean, you would know immediately if you had a refrigerant leak on the water side because the water would be getting into your, would likely be getting into your refrigeration system, and then you would have all kinds of problems. So if you pop the Schrader and water blows out, then you got a problem. I don't do a lot of water cooled stuff anymore. Maybe some other guys have some different options or opinions on that, but yeah, that's my 2 cents. DJ Subair, do my other employees watch this chat? I think one of them might, but I don't think, out of the 5, I think one of them, actually I'm one of the 5, so I think one might and the other 3 don't. So I tell them all about this, so whether they watch it or not is on their own time, but I mean but they will comment about my videos and different things, so I don't know. If any of my employees are in the chat, say hey. I don't think they're in here, but I don't know. Nobody ever tells me they watch them. Okay. Oh, Isaiah. Okay, cool. Right on. Tell your dad I said hi. All right. Yeah, exactly, Justin Russ. You will know almost immediately. So, all right, let's go to my topics here. Best place for ice machine training. That was another really good question. So, ice machine training is another one of those things too. You want to lean on the manufacturers, okay? You're not going to find one-stop shop on ice machine training. And even if you go to the trade schools and different things, a lot of times they're not going to give you like a great education on how ice machines work because there's so many different types. You have to go to each manufacturer and, figure out how their machines work. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. So you have to go to each individual ice machine manufacturer and see what their defrost strategies are and their setups and their control strategies and different things. So Scotsman ice machines, Hoshizaki ice machines, Isomatic, Manitowoc, Follett, Vote. Those are the ones that I run into. I don't run into Vote very much anymore, but then there's Cool Air. There's some offshoot ones. Just go to the individual manufacturers' websites, download the manuals, and just read away. Try to pay attention. A really good time to learn how an ice machine works is when you're doing a cleaning, right? Because there is some downtime when you're cleaning an ice machine. When you're done scrubbing and there's nothing else to do, read the installation manual while you're waiting for the thing to circulate. It will take some time on your part too after you get off work to go home and read some manuals and learn about different control strategies. Be cautious. I'm not saying that my videos are the best at all, because I say any videos you guys watch on YouTube, you want to be cautious. Even my stuff, okay? You want to take it, what's the phrase, with a grain of salt or whatever. But Google search that particular ice machine manufacturer and then click on the videos tab and see. Like Hoshizaki has a bunch of video, like how-to videos on their website, how to clean their machines, and I think they might even have some training on there. Same thing with Manitowoc. They've got some cool videos on there too. So, just research that, go to YouTube, look up some of the stuff, and and just try your hardest. Feel free to send me an email anytime and I'll try to answer what I can. So, have I seen any Zoom lock fittings yet? No, Dan, I have not. Just not in the restaurant refrigeration stuff. We typically probably aren't going to see Zoom lock unless they start bringing VRF into the restaurants. I don't think we're going to see Zoom lock very much, but I'm not against it. I mean, it's just not something that's economical for me to use right now because my customers don't want to pay for that. But I do see some value in it. Especially, I have worked in some places in the past that you had to pull like fire permits and have a fire watch, 24-hour fire watch and different things. And Zoom lock would be a great tool in that situation. So, all right. Yeah, Brian, I don't know. Brian says he goes to the Hoshizaki class every year. I might have missed the Hoshizaki class in my area. I'll have to call them. Has anybody gone to the Hoshizaki class in Brea this year yet? I don't know if I missed it. I went to the Manitowoc class, but I didn't go to the Hoshi one yet. Okay. Let me see. Oh, I had another interesting question. Someone had asked me someone had put like a question in one of my YouTube videos, and they said, what's the difference between refrigeration and air conditioning? What's the main difference? And I answered his question with a real simple answer. I said the main difference between refrigeration and air conditioning is evaporator temperature and control/defrost strategy. And that's really the difference, right? Because an air conditioner has a compressor, a condenser, an evaporator, or a metering device, okay, and refrigerant piping, and so does a refrigeration system, a walk-in cooler. The only difference really between those is that in the walk-in cooler system, our evaporator temperature is going to be a lot lower, right? Because we're maintaining a much colder box temp versus, in an air conditioning system where you're going to be maintaining, 38 degree and up evaporator temp, right? Depending on your climate and humidity and all that different stuff. So that was an interesting one. All right. So guys, I want to get to your guys' questions. Anybody have more questions in the chat? Let's throw them down into the bottom. That way I don't have to scroll all the way back up to the top, and I'll try to get to some of these questions. See what you guys throw down in there. And I had something too. I'd kind of get your guys' response from the chat, but I don't want to become a tool review channel, but I do want to start talking about some tools that I like and some tools that I use. So I might start putting some of those videos up, maybe as a bonus video or something like that. I'll still try to keep my normal 2 videos a week to be like an educational topic, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the tools that I use, per se. Again, I'm not going to become a tool review person. There's some other great channels for that. Tool Pros has a YouTube channel, Brent Ridley. I don't know if he's in here or not. He does tool reviews and he's got a podcast on it too. So I'm not going to do what they do, but I might start talking a little bit about some of the tools that I do use that benefit me and try to showcase them or something like that. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe we'll have some there. Maybe I'll just release them as like Facebook videos. I don't know. I'll figure that one out. With the new setup here in the office, I do have some ideas about using this setup. Right behind me, I've got my my trainer board back there for the duct detectors. And a lot of times I'll use that. I've done a couple different things on that board where I put like motor starters on there and wired them up. But I use that to show different people, like when I do like an RCS training class or when I show my guys about duct detectors, and I've used it in my YouTube videos too. But right below that is a desk, and I have some ideas. Fluke 196, thank you very much, man. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's kind of the idea, I mean, don't get me wrong, Fluke 196. There will be sponsorships, but it's not going to be me pushing products per se. And that's something that I've had a hard time with. Like, for instance, I'll tell you guys, there was a tool manufacturer that sent me, they wanted to work with me and they sent me some tools. And I told them from the beginning, like, look, I do not have a tool review channel and that's not what I do. I don't mind showing a tool in my video, like while I'm working, like, hey, this is a really cool tool and I like it. I don't mind doing that if I'm honest about it. But I told them in no way do I want to change the type of videos that I made. Well, after I did my first video with them, like, again, I just showed the tool that they sent me. And then they were like, oh, would you mind changing the title of your video? Would you mind including links to where they can buy it? And I was like, no, that's not what my channel's about. I'm going to do this on my own terms. And if I show a tool in my video, it's because I use it and I like it. I'm not going to try to push stuff that I don't use or don't like. So you don't have to worry about that. But there will be a channel sponsor coming on soon, sooner than later, will be coming, but it's not going to be something that it's going to be someone that I agree with, and I'm going to pick them very, very carefully. Okay. And I'm going to try to give you guys the best content that I can, but you also have to understand that I invest a lot of time in this, past the point of it being a hobby anymore. Cause that's what this started as, was something fun, you know, a video for my guys. And then it turned into something interesting. And then now, you know, it is what it is, and I'm investing a lot of time. So I do have to get some kind of reward for it, especially with my family missing out on a lot of the time that I invest, not just these live streams, just in my videos too. But again, I'm going to stand up and make sure that my content isn't, you know, I'm not going to compromise what I want to give you guys, basically. So just don't worry about that. All right. What is the difference between home refrigerator and commercial? Would it start on small with home? Would it? Wait. I'm sorry, dude. I got to reread that question. What is the difference between home refrigerator and commercial? Would it to start on small? I don't understand your question there, but if you could, it's E. John Fall. Can you rephrase that? Okay, AVR 1961. Best way to purge lines when checking the pressures. Okay, so when you're applying your gauges, typically what you want to do if you're using, so I have an interesting thing right here. So service gauges. This is a problem that we have with smart probes versus service gauges, because smart probes, it's really hard to vent or to purge the air that's in the lines, right? When you put a smart probe on there, because you're pushing up against the air that, now granted on a smart probe, it's very, very small amount. On service gauges, it's really easy to purge your lines because you connect your fittings and you make sure the valves are closed on your gauges, and then you go to the opposite end where it connects to your gauges and you open them until you get refrigerant blowing out. So the theory is that you blew air out, right? But in all reality too, I mean, are we really blowing all the air out, or are we mixing with the air? Because I really think that we're going to mix with the air too. I guess the best practice on working with gauges would be to leave them loose when you connect them so that immediately it pushes the air out. But I guess, you know, thinking about it, there's still going to be a little bit of mixture of air in there. So you just got to do your best to purge things as you're going to try to prevent the amount of air and moisture that you get into the system. So, all right, let's go back up in here. Okay, what is a dumbed down version of enthalpy? When would you need this? It's kind of hard to dumb down enthalpy. Okay. It's the heat content of the air, right? But it's kind of hard to dumb down that one. Why don't you throw me an email on that one, bud, and I can better type that out rather than stumble over my words and make sure I don't say something wrong to you. So hvacrvideos@gmail.com. And that's What's the Truth that posted that. Okay. Does it help to start on home refrigerator to move to commercial as a new tech in the trade? I understand now, buddy. So does it help to start on home? I mean, it's not going to hurt, but I'm not going to, we need technicians working on the home stuff just as much as we need technicians working on the commercial stuff. So, I don't want to say don't. Oh, Gary Carter, thank you so very much, man. I really appreciate it. I don't want to say don't work on home stuff. It's not going to hurt you to start on home stuff, but I am going to be honest with you. And I hate to generalize people, but I think there's less education in the residential refrigeration sector than there is in the commercial refrigeration sector. Less companies willing to train you because, again, I'm stepping out on a limb here. Most residential companies aren't very big, so they don't have a lot of resources to be able to invest to train you properly. Okay. Now, I know it's going to be, and again, I hope I didn't just step on everybody out there that does residential stuff. It's just you need to have a general understanding of refrigeration. You need to understand the concepts first. I would highly suggest you go to trade school before you go work for a residential company, and at least have an understanding of refrigeration. Okay. And I realize I probably just stepped on a bunch of people by answering that question that way, so I apologize. Okay, let's go into here. Okay, See what I'm missing here. Oh, Dick Wurs, guys, Josh J posted in here that Dick Wurs, he just posted Dick Wurs, so I'm assuming he's talking about Dick Wurs' book, Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians. Hey, just on a side note, it's funny you brought that up. I just ordered one of those books, guys, to give away on the channel. It's going to be a while for whatever reason. I ordered it from Amazon, and it seems like it's going to take a couple weeks to get here because I don't know where it was coming from. It was hard to find those right now, so I don't know if they're clearing the market for his new book coming out or what, but yeah, I ordered one of those that I will be giving away on the channel. But if you guys don't already, and that's just because I love that book, but if you don't already have that book, Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians by Dick Wurs, I highly suggest it, okay? I have no affiliation with Dick Wurs, but I've taken a class with him, an online class, and he's just a great instructor, and the book is awesome. And it does really break down commercial refrigeration, especially with like restaurants, and helps you to understand little things like how starting components work and refrigeration systems and evaporator TDs. Hey, Just Russ, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. I'll grab the book from behind me real quick. So we've got the book right here. This is a great, great book. Let me put my headphones back on so I can hear myself. It's kind of funny. You get used to wearing those and hearing myself. When I first started doing this, I couldn't handle having the headphones on, hearing myself, but you need it. So this is a great book. It's pretty expensive, but it's worth every penny, guys. What I noticed is that on the publisher's website, Cengage, everywhere I tried to buy the book on there, it seemed like they wanted you to buy like a digital book, which I know people are going away from paper printed books, but I just love a book in my hand. I need something to read. I'm old school. AVR 1961, thank you so very much, man. For those of you that don't know, I'm sorry, not that don't know, but for those of you that are like me, old school guys, you know, I just love having a book in my hand. I'm not a fan. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate having digital stuff and being able to download things and have all the information. But if I can ever get my hands on physical copies of things, I love it. That's why I have books in the background. And what you guys can't see on the other side of here is a stack of papers and different things with different training manuals. So I just love having paper stuff, which I do think is kind of sad. Again, I appreciate the fact that we have access to digital stuff, but I think it's kind of sad that we're going away from physical books because I don't know, there's just something about turning a page, but maybe it's just my age. What about you guys in the chat? I mean, do you guys like digital or do you like paper? I love turning a page. I love holding something. It's easier for me to pay attention. Kuwait Goat, thank you very much, man. I really, really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it, dude. That's awesome, dude. Thank you so very much, man. I'm sorry, Cowie Goat. I hope I said that right. So, but yeah, I just love having a book. Hey, Bryce Elmore's in here. Bryce used to work for me a long time ago. Bryce got a much better job with a much better company, and he's doing really well. Really good guy. But Bryce is a cool dude. So, hey, Bryce, how you doing, man? Yeah, but I just love having a paper book. There's just something about being able to read them. Again, like I said, yeah, it is what it is. So, okay. That's true. Steve Eubank says the battery never dies. That is the truth, man. That's like the problem we have with all these digital smart probes and different things is, batteries, right? We're helping the battery industry. Okay, let me go through my checklist here and see what else I have on my thing. We covered that. Just kind of going through here. Recommended ice machine cleaning at a minimum, depending on your environment, is every 3 to 6 months for an ice machine cleaning. That was what I would suggest, but if you have like a bakery or a brewery with a lot of yeast, you want to up that time basically. So this is another one too. At the end of the stream last week, someone had asked me about evaporator superheat and how it affected compressor superheat. And I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit here. Okay. So evaporator superheat is determined by the expansion valve, right? So it affects compressor superheat too. There was if you ever have a condensing unit, I'm going to use a walk-in cooler as an example. Okay. If you ever have a condensing unit and the condensing unit is located really, really close to the evaporator coil, a lot of times it doesn't give, and this mainly applies to older systems, okay? When we had a hard time measuring superheat, when we didn't have high-tech digital tools, and when we didn't have very accurate expansion valves, okay, it's not even, let's forget about digital, because digital is just insane. When you have an electronic expansion valve, the accuracy on those is great. But when we're talking about a TXV, a thermostatic expansion valve, right, or TEV, the new name for them, the old ones, they had a lot of overshoot to them. So basically they could hunt, they could go, way open, way closed. And when we had that, and when we had very inaccurate tools for measuring superheat, i.e. A temperature, just a thermometer taped to the suction line, right? Very inaccurate way of doing it. It was very easy to send liquid back to that compressor, because if you set your evaporator superheat too low, then we'd be worried about the compressor superheat being too low. And if we have no superheat at the compressor, what do we have? We potentially have liquid coming back to the compressor, and we could have a problem, right? But we kind of don't have that problem very much anymore. And that, in my opinion, happened because of the inaccurate tools that we had and the not efficient expansion valves. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but the inefficient expansion valves, I should say, that had a lot of overshoot in them. But today's modern expansion valves, the mechanical ones, and today's modern tools kind of prevent us from having those issues, okay? So evaporator superheat, you typically, depending on what you're working on, let's just say a walk-in cooler with general product in it, we're going to set it at about 10 degrees. And we just need to make sure that we have, 20-ish degrees superheat up at the compressor, something like that. But I mean, as long as you don't have zero superheat going back, you're fine, right? And if we have a situation where we might have really low superheat, we might add a suction line accumulator to the system. But a lot of times we've been eliminating suction line accumulators because they can build up oil depending on the smaller systems, okay? So I don't know if I answered that guy's question. Hopefully I explained it. But I think the big fear about too low of compressor superheat happened very much when we had inaccurate tools and valves that would often overshoot. So if we set our superheat too low, let's say we were running like 6 degrees superheat on a walk-in freezer. Well, if we had an inaccurate tool measuring that superheat, there was a potential that we could have a lot lower of superheat, right? And maybe on a hot pull down, we might flood refrigerant back to that compressor and cause a problem. Okay. But as the tools have advanced and the accuracy of them has advanced, we tend to not run into those problems very much anymore. So, okay. I'm going to, so cheers, mate. I tried all caps, but for whatever reason, it doesn't upload the text. Electronics, eh? Okay, Sterling. It's all good, man. All right, let's see if I'm missing any questions, guys. Right on, Greg. I really appreciate the nice words, man. So, and, let's see. Do I get a lot of overnight emergency service calls? Maybe one a month, depending on the customer. It all depends on the customers that you have. When I used to do work for a big hospital in my area, we used to get a lot of overtime service calls. That's when you'd get the weird morgue service calls, right? I've talked about that one before. I'll tell you one more time too. So I had a service call. Oh my gosh, this must have been 10 years ago, and they called me out and they said, we got a 4-passenger morgue cooler that's down. So obviously that holds 4 bodies, right? And so I asked the guy, I go, well, and it's 2 a.m. or something. And he says, we need you out here now. And I said, okay, is it loaded with bodies? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, well, this is a tiny little thing. This isn't a walk-in. I go, well, the bodies need to be gone when I get there. And he goes, well, what do you want me to do with them? And I said, I don't know, man, but I can't work on it when there's bodies in it, right? Because I got to shut the doors, and I said, so they got to be gone. And he goes, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, I don't know what to tell you, man, but I'll be there in about 45 minutes, and we got to have the bodies out of it. So when I got there, all the bodies were out, and they had a very small morgue. And I kind of still laugh about it to this day. I'm sure you guys have heard this. I probably told this to you, but I still laugh about it because I just wondered where they put those bodies, right? I mean, because I knew where the empty rooms and stuff were. So, like, it just makes me laugh. Like, did some orderly come around the corner and there's like 4 bodies in the hallway or something? Like, what did they do with them? And how did they keep them cold? That's the other thing that made me laugh. So they took 4 bodies and they put them somewhere. God forbid they put them in the walk-in cooler, right, where the food's at, because some little kitchen lady come in there and freak out. I never understood or never found out where they put those bodies, but I thought that was a funny one. But yeah, we get overtime service calls in the middle of the night. Not very much anymore, though. We don't do that hospital customer anymore. Okay. I'm reading a question here. Yeah, Brandon, HVAC ants. You said you won't post HVAC videos because you don't even like your jobs being used as examples for your peers. Even though you take pride in your work, you feel that criticism would break me down. Criticism is definitely something that I deal with. Okay. The only thing that I can say is that I try to be careful about what I post. I'm not saying that, well, I am saying I don't post everything that I do. Okay. You know, you guys just see a fraction of the work that I do. If there's something that I think is questionable, sometimes you got to do some things to make it work. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right, to get things working. Sometimes I post it, sometimes I don't. You know, certain customers don't want me to film, you know, so I have to be careful about that, and try not to mention customers' names, try not to show locations, try not to show people, try not to show my employees. It's pretty difficult to film, actually, when you think about it. So it's kind of hard. And, you know, and then also on top of that, you want to make sure that you're not wasting the customer's time because they're paying you, right? So that's why I use like a GoPro and different things. So sometimes I can film when I'm, you know, and I just try not to waste the customer's time. And I have had to like discount customers too. If I felt like I spent a little too much time on something, you know, I'll take time off the bill. But yeah, it is difficult to film. So it's an interesting thing. Okay. Go back into here. Yeah, they put them in the ice machines. Who knows what they did with them, man? Okay. You would have one hold your tool. That's funny, Brandon. All right. How do you deal with everything going back to the electronic board nowadays? It's like you can't diagnose anything by yourself. And that was by Sterling Archer. That's a great, great question. I'm going to preface that and tell you a little story. I had a Manitowoc ice machine, and this is when they first came out with their Indigo circuit board, right? And the Indigo circuit board, when it first came out on the Manitowoc ice machines, it has a USB port, and this thing does all kinds of stuff, right? It's almost like you can launch a space shuttle from it. Well, I called tech support one time and I go, hey, I got a machine that is giving me some problems, right? Excuse me. And he says, okay. He goes, what is it giving you? And I read him off the list of problems. And he said, okay, at this point, that thing has so many problems. He goes, that I want you to take a USB stick it into the circuit board, and I want you to download all the information that's on the circuit board. He goes, I want you to email that to me. And he goes, I'll have an email in your inbox tomorrow morning with what you need to do. And I go, wait, what? We don't want to troubleshoot this? He goes, no, there's too much going on. He's like, send me the information and I'll go through it on the computer and I'll call you back with what's wrong with it. And I go, so out of curiosity, I said, what's my job other than to stick the USB flash drive in this unit? And he goes, nothing. He goes, that's your job. Stick the USB flash drive in, email it to me, and I'll tell you what to change. And that just made me laugh. And that was I finally came to the realization. It's like, man, they're taking these things away from us and making it just like a circuit board. So to answer your question, it is difficult. I mean, you know, when we have circuit boards, especially when they don't build the circuit boards correctly. And I'm going to say, for instance, a Hoshizaki ice machine. Love Hoshizakis, right? But I'd really appreciate if we could save the error messages in the circuit board, because oftentimes a customer will do something that they're not supposed to do, and they'll open up the circuit board and they'll push the reset button. And then they'll call me and say the machine was beeping. And I ask them, well, how many times did it beep? And they say, I don't know. I pushed the reset button and I have no way of knowing. That's a kind of situation where it's like, man, I'd really like to have some sort of history so that way I can look and see when the customer sticks their fingers where they shouldn't. Now, that's not Hoshizaki's fault. That's the customer for getting involved. And I always have to educate the customer. But I was using it as an example. You know, some systems have a recall feature built in, so that way you can recall a problem. What I really, really appreciate is on the older L series Linux units with the M18 circuit boards. And, you know, they had a recall feature in them where you could click the dip switch to recall and it would show you all the past problems. And then if you hold down on the button on that particular unit, it erases all the problems. I really like that too, because after you've fixed something and you want to know if it's going to become a problem again, you erase all the problems. So that way, if you come back and that problem exists again, then you know what happened since you last left. So every manufacturer has something interesting about their circuit boards. And I think it's all about how we design them. And if we design them with memory and recall functions and different things, then I think it would really, really help us. But it also is a difficult way to diagnose because, oh man, it must be the circuit board because that does everything, right? All right. Okay. Superior. I'm assuming you're talking about me, saying you thought I was doing these service calls within 21 minutes. Yeah. All right. Yeah, my service calls typically, average service call, I bet you if you pulled my ticket times, my average service call is probably 3.5 hours. And that's average, right? So you got to understand there might be an easy service call that's like an hour, and there might be a difficult one that's 4 hours. It just depends. Ice machine service calls, they tend to be a little bit longer, especially when you're working on different brands. So if you're working on a Hoshizaki, they have longer freeze times, right? So you're going to have a longer service call time. Manitowoc's have a shorter freeze time. So, different things. Different ice machine manufacturers are different. All right, let's see what else we got in here, guys. Who does HVACR in government buildings like the White House, for example? They have big contracts, mostly union. If it's government, it's mostly union work. Union companies typically have agreements. You can do work for government if you're non-union, but a lot of times you have to do prevailing wages, where a non-union contractor essentially has to follow union rules, follow union guidelines, and do union work. Or you do it the way that's competitive, essentially, with the union, essentially. So I must have said essentially a couple times there. Okay. Just curious, has anyone used the iManifold Measure Quick with Windows 10? How did your emulators work for you? John McMaster, when they first came out with the Windows 10 for the iManifold, I think I turned it on one time, but I don't think I ever connected anything to it. So no, I have not used Windows 10 with anything. It's just kind of redundant to have a computer out there for me. Okay, let's see what else. I hit plus. That was my bad. All right. Let's see what else we got in here, guys. What am I missing? Anybody? Let's throw something down in the bottom if I'm missing questions, guys. Okay. I don't want to waste you guys' time, but I want to get to everybody's questions. So throw them down in the bottom, and I'll try to get to them. I addressed it in the beginning, but obviously you guys see I redid my studio or my office or whatever. I just put some shelves and stuff. Nothing in here is super fancy. I just went to IKEA, if you guys know what that furniture store is, and just bought some silly shelves. Had my daughter help me put them together. So, yeah, it's working out pretty good. I have some ideas for the flow of things. I have a second mic here. I've always had a second mic, but that's for the podcast, so I can have a guest possibly in the studio. But I don't really know how that's going to work out because it's kind of hard to have a guest come to my house, which is kind of weird. So I don't know. We'll see. But I have a second mic for that. And then, yeah, got some cool stuff in the background. I wanted to have the shelf so that way we could see everything in the background. Okay. How's the VRF market in California? It depends. The VRF market is going good for residential high rises and different things like that. And commercial buildings, they're starting to go VRF. I don't deal with anything with VRF, but it is coming slowly. So Manitowoc with remote condenser, blowing 30 amp fuse, disconnect once a week. Ideas: replace the ceramic PTCR, bin sensor, and wane and charge. Works perfectly every time. Ooh, that's an interesting, Justin. Interesting one. Intermittent problems can oftentimes be starting components. It sounds like you already addressed the starting components. If it's blowing a 30 amp, it's typically not anything downstairs, and it's a remote. Oh, remote condenser. So no, the condensing unit's, the compressor's downstairs on that one, huh? It's not a quiet cube machine. That's an interesting one, man. Yeah, Justin, I don't know anything I can tell you right now through the chat. I'd be happy to talk with you via Facebook Messenger or email or something like that. Maybe we could talk some more. Send me an email or hit me up on Facebook, either way. Any of you other guys in here too, I've already said, send me emails. I'm also available on Facebook if you guys are friends with me on my Facebook page, HVACR videos. I have an account too. You can message me on Messenger and whatnot, even on Instagram. I try to get to all those when I can. I am a little behind on some emails, but I try. So how can you get into industrial HVAC from light commercial? Any advice? Purple Giraffe. Dude, so many companies out there are looking for help. Dude, all you got to do is go knock on their doors and talk to them. Depends on the area you're working in, but I know everybody's looking for help right now. So it shouldn't be too hard. If you're already somewhat in the trade, people are probably going to jump all over you, man. So just remember that when you're looking at companies, interview the company just as much as they're interviewing you. So talk to the technicians, go to the supply houses, ask them, if the techs are happy, that kind of stuff. Don't be rude to the company, but just remember, you want to interview those companies as much as they interview you. So, okay. Busy is good. All right. Bad fuse holder in the disconnect. Yeah, that's that. Dad's Cavaliers says that for Justin P. That's a good thing. Usually you can test disconnect problems or fuse holders with a infrared laser thermometer. You can usually shoot them at the top of the disconnect and at the bottom of the disconnect and check the temperature of the fuses and see where there's a hot spot. Thermal imaging camera might help you too. I don't have a thermal imaging camera, but that would definitely help you to see a hot spot in a disconnect switch to see if you have a loose connection. That's a really, really good thing to talk about or to think about there, though, like Dad's Cavalier said. All right. Okay. Can even call me if anyone wants to. Oh, okay. That's Alexander saying that. Yeah, Alexander's offering help. Okay. What are my thoughts about learning the hot side? You've been doing refrigeration for 7 years. Do you think it's a good idea? The Tito 209, I definitely think it's a good idea. Now, the more knowledge you have, the better. The more you're going to be wanted. So, I will say that there is a difference between refrigeration and hot side, and I don't do hot side work, okay? But I do understand what's going on there. If you understand and know how to work on hot side, you're going to be more valuable. So definitely, man. I mean, if it's a good paying job, now it is going to be, you got to love restaurant work because you're going to get 99% of the work you're going to do on hot side is going to be restaurant work, and it's going to be greasy and it's going to be dirty. Fryers are nasty. They're covered in grease. You're going to have to deal with that. But I mean, that stuff doesn't bother me per se too much. I mean, I deal in nasty restaurants already. You guys see the videos. So, if I had the time, I would start doing hot side work, but it's hard for me to invest any more time than I already have and training my techs to do more. It's just too hard, but definitely I think you should learn it. It will definitely help you out. Okay. Nate C, I see you say merch. Am I missing something there? Oh, any of my merch available yet? Nate, no, I'm sorry, dude. Guys, it's really hard for me. I'm dragging butt on doing all this different stuff and getting merch set up. And I set up shirts. I had them like set up through Teespring on YouTube, and I just did not like the quality, guys. So I didn't want to sell you guys crap. Basically, I made some shirts on Teespring and I ordered like 5 or 6 of them, and they all came back and they all sucked. Like the way they printed things didn't look that way. The way that the shirt quality was, like, it just sucked. And I know I'm a perfectionist, but I just can't stomach you guys buying a shirt that says HVACR videos on it and it suck. So, and there's some merch out there that I've bought that sucks from some other people. And it's like, man, I washed it like 5 times and it shrunk up to nothing. And it's like, yeah, that sucks because I paid, $30 for that shirt. So I know I can't, guarantee everything forever, but I want to at least have something quality. So what I'm doing as far as the merch goes is I'm looking local, and I'm going away from the online companies, and I'm looking for a local screen printing company by me that can understand and help me with the design and try not to use an online thing. The whole drive towards Teespring is that it's simple and easy and it's integrated into YouTube, but it's just they don't make high quality stuff. So I don't want to sell you guys that. So I apologize, but I will get into it eventually. So, all right. We need hats. I know, man. I will work on them. Okay. All right. Let's see what else I got in here. Is that condenser work? What are you talking about? Fluke 196. I don't understand what you're saying there. Did I miss something? Okay. The company you work for, you do both hot and cold side, so learning will be free. Yeah. Tito 209. Definitely, dude. Go for it. Fluke 196. I don't know what you're saying. Oh, you got it. Okay. Weak brick. Oh, okay. I got you. Cool. All right, guys. Any more questions in here? Throw them into here. Yeah. I'm pretty much run out of talking topics here. So if anybody else has any more questions, we'll get to them. Throw them down in the chat. I want to say thank you guys very much. I really appreciate. Purple Giraffe. Cryo chambers. Honestly, bud, I wish I knew about them, but I don't. So I'm not even going to touch that one. I do not understand how they work. So I apologize. I can't be the person to answer that. So it was a reoccurrent problem. Oh, okay, cool. All right. Wired breaker never kicked out. I'm a diesel mechanic looking to switch into refrigeration. Hey, David Fucks. I'm assuming that's your name, right? Hopefully it's not David Fooch. David Fucks. Okay. The diesel mechanic, you want to get into refrigeration, dude. There's a whole sector if you're interested in it and doing transporter refrigeration, right? For the refrigeration systems for the diesel trucks. Because if you understand, the people that do transport refrigeration, they have to know how to work on the diesel generators that run those, like the thermal units they put on the side of trucks. So if you're interested in it, I know there's a whole sector for that. So that's a definite good segue for you if you want to get into refrigeration, is going to the transport stuff. So, does my nose itch? Yeah, thanks so much, bud. Yeah. All right. Where do you get your R290 training? RSES.org has some videos on it if you're a member. You can also go to True Manufacturing's website, Delfield's website, and they have some interesting stuff. But I mean, there's not like one great thing like this is how you work on R290. R290 is basically just refrigeration. The only difference that you need to know is the tools that you use to get into R290, the pinch off tools, and just following proper procedures like braise or purging with nitrogen before you braise, or trying to cut the components out of the system. With R290, I will say that you cannot put aftermarket components period in the system. You have to use factory only OEM components because you're taking a big liability, and also a lot of the components are designed differently to be spark proof, and the liquid line filter dryers are super tiny. So make sure you're using OEM only parts if you're working with R290. So can you diagnose properly a grounded compressor without a mega ohm meter? I can't get the final answer on that. Yeah, you definitely can, Sterling Archer. I honestly don't own a mega ohm meter, and I've diagnosed many grounded compressors. Now, mega ohm meters, you want to be cautious about it. Copeland has some service bulletins out there about the use of a mega ohm meter with a compressor, because you can get a false reading with a mega ohm reader on a compressor if you have moisture in the system. So you have to be very cautious about that. The higher moisture in the system, the higher the ohm reading you're going to get. Or I mean, basically the mega ohm reader might indicate that it's a bad compressor when you really just need to clean up the system. So a mega ohm meter is a great tool in my opinion. You can use it to figure out the insulation, any insulation problems in wiring and different things. Okay. But Copeland's bulletin essentially says that a mega ohm meter can be used to diagnose compressor problems, but you typically need to have a trend showing you that the compressor windings are degrading over time. Copeland does not recommend using a mega ohm meter for a one-stop shop to say a compressor is bad. And I would highly, highly suggest that you get, if you are going to use a mega ohm meter, that you use something that's highly accurate. And there's some like really cheap mega ohm meters you can buy, usually sitting on the counter at the supply house, and some tool manufacturer that makes tons of tools for everybody, right? Or they just rebrand tools. I'm not going to name their name, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Their mega ohm meter I wouldn't say is the most accurate. So you want to lean on something a little more accurate, and usually you want to use a trending data. So basically you take a mega ohm reading and you note down the temperature outside, the refrigerant pressures, and the mega ohm reading value. And then a couple weeks later, do the same thing. Keep doing that over and over again. And then you'll start to see a trend line, and the values will start to change, and you'll start to understand that, okay, yes, the windings are degrading in the system, or the insulation on the windings are degrading. So, but to answer your question, yes, a grounded compressor can be diagnosed without a mega ohm meter. Yes, definitely. Just put your meter on resistance and check it to ground. Put it on tone and check it to ground. All right. Let's see what I missed here while I was talking. Any advice on reading wiring schematics? You have had a little issue with them. Wiring schematics is very difficult, the Tito 209. Learning them. I was always taught, and this doesn't work with everything, to understand the basics of how a schematic works by using water pressure, right? Just, again, not talking about motors and different things, but simple things like switches. Understanding how switches work, think of it as water flow. Water coming in, a switch stops, water going out, and that kind of gets you the general idea of how electricity works in a schematic. But each manufacturer has a different schematic and a different way of doing it, so it can be a little difficult. Yeah, that's really all I got to say about that. It's kind of hard for me to talk about a wiring schematic on a live stream. Electrical has always been one of the easiest things for me to learn. I've been thankful for that. All right. What are my thoughts on residential units with new built-in digital gauges and electronic expansion valves? Purple Giraffe. Okay, Sterling, I'll answer that. So Purple Giraffe, what are my thoughts about... Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you and frank. My thoughts about digital gauges built into like the York unit with electronic expansion valves, it sounds great, but how do you test the accuracy of those gauges? The gauge that's built into there. And what do you do when it's not accurate anymore? Is there an adjustment in that circuit board to make them more accurate? That's where I have a problem. You know, making these things, you know, machines that charge your system for you and do the work. But how do you test the accuracy of those tools? That's the question. Because if you can't test the accuracy, how is it any better or any worse than a technician doing the work? All right. Let's see what else we got in here. Okay, yes, if you have the reference values, it is a good tool. Most VRF lets you check the values on the board or service checking. There you go. Alexander's saying, yeah. All right. Let's see what else. I think it's good checking inverters, but Alexander probably can verify that he is a... Oh, okay, gotcha. Let's see what else is in here. I'm reading some of your guys' stuff. All right, guys. I think we are going to wrap this up. I really, really appreciate you guys coming in here. Again, you guys know my email. McCutcheon Services, he says he likes the office look. Thank you very much. That's the new setup here. I'll do something and show you guys the other side of my office. Let me turn these lights off. You can see my area, and I'll flip the camera for you, and you could see where I'm working too. Hold on. Let me see if I can figure out how to work this. There we go. And let me turn this off, and let me transition that over. And that's the other side of my office. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm staring at computer screens basically, and those big giant lights are there to light me up. When I turn them on, they get super bright, so you won't be able to see anything, but they just light up the room essentially. So all I did was switch my office around and give me a little bit more room and some better camera angles. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that back off, click that back over. There we go. Cool. So now we're back to normal. So yeah, but I wanted to be able to display some of the stuff I have back there. I've got my mega ohm meter. I've got my Simpson meter in the top right-hand side. That I never used that Simpson meter. That was my dad's. I remember seeing him use it, but I was never able to use it. And then I've got my old Annie in the first shelf, and then my compressor analyzer up on the very top. And then just a couple other little things back there. That little VW bus my daughter built with Legos, and she wanted to put it in here, so I let her. So, and that is it. Okay, let me see if there's anything else that I'm missing in this stream and the questions here. And if not, we are going to wrap this up. Yeah, I really, really appreciate if on the way out you guys could hit the thumbs up button. It really does help my stream to be essentially, the more you guys like it and the more you guys interact in the chat and the more comments you guys leave on the video, it helps the YouTubers out because it puts us in YouTube's algorithm and makes us a search result basically. So it helps us to grow our channel when you guys leave feedback, thumbs up, comments, whether it be in the live stream or on the video. So even if you guys don't even leave a big comment, if you guys just leave a period, anything on anybody's YouTube video, it's really, really going to help. Okay. It helps them build anything and, you know, helps them build their viewership and get out there. So any of that stuff would really, really help if you guys could do that. Again, guys, thank you very, very much. Let's see. Sterling Archer, right on, man. I really appreciate it. Okay. Hey, so real quick before I leave, hopefully everybody didn't leave yet. So I'm going to continue to do these streams at 5:00 p.m. Pacific Coast time. Okay. But I'm not completely against doing a stream for people international. Okay. So if people international are watching and they have some ideas about better times, let me know. Send me a email, send me a comment on YouTube video or something. Even put a comment on this video, you know, in the normal chat, and tell me where you're from and tell me what times work for you guys, because I wouldn't mind doing another stream, maybe like on a Saturday night at 11 o'clock at night or something, if it really worked out to benefit some of the international people, because I do get a lot of international people from Australia, from Paris, from different places. And, you know, I'd love to do another stream if it worked out for me. So let me know down in the comments, guys. I really appreciate it. And we'll try to do some other stuff. Yeah, sure. Sterling is the Europe dude. So, all right, guys, really, really appreciate it. We're going to cue the outro music right now. And we will catch you guys on the next one.